Hello, this is Mark O'Brien from Scalar, now part of SentinelOne. I'd like to present a deeper dive into Scalar dashboards, focusing on dashboard parameters. If you're not already familiar with Scalar dashboards, I highly recommend you watch the dashboard overview video we recently published, which goes into the process of saving graphs to dashboards and editing them, saving Power Queries to dashboards and getting them to render as pie charts, big numbers, etc. Dashboard parameters unlock a new type of functionality. They allow you to define a single set of visualizations, which can then be applied to different portions of your dataset. Dashboard parameters are essentially variables that you define in the dashboard JSON, so that when a user views the dashboard, they have the ability to select different values for those variables. We're going to begin with the same web traffic dashboard we used in the dashboard's overview video. If you'll recall, most of these graphs were built on the same initial filter, request equals star and page equals star. This means any log lines that have a value in the request field and a value in the page field. So going over here into search, we're looking at the same thing. I could also narrow down to a specific page by replacing the star with album in quotes. What I'd like to do is add a parameter to this dashboard called service. This allows me to narrow down by page names. And for the purpose of this demo, we'll say these are different microservices with the same metrics. To do that, I'm going to go to Edit JSON, and this takes me to a page where I can see all of the JSON that defines this dashboard. What I'm planning to do is to modify the filter so that instead of always searching for page equals star, I can provide a menu which allows the viewer to change that value. So to do that, I'm going to add some code here at the top. I've got a parameters block, and within it, I've got one parameter. The name is service, and it has a number of different values. The first value is star, so this is the same as we had before. But if I want to narrow down by a specific page or specific service, I'm going to make page equals quote album quote. So this is why I have single quotes within double quotes. Here are all my different page values. And then I can go ahead, now that I've defined that service parameter, I can then put in pound service pound. This gets replaced with the value selected by the user when viewing the dashboard. So I'm just going to go through here, and for each of these page filters, I'm going to add page equals service. You'll notice with the multiplot graph that filters by page, the filter now contains two instances of page. What that means is that if I select a certain page from the menu, only that plot will show. Of course, you also have the option not to include the service parameter, in which case the multiplot graph would not change when the user selects a different value for service. Now when I save my dashboard and view it, you'll notice that I have a service menu here, and I have my star as the first option, which is the default. I also have the ability then to narrow down by specific page names or service names. And what this has done now, it has modified all of these searches so that only the friends page is showing up. So this makes it very easy to slice and dice my data in different ways. And again, the format we're using here is just name and values. I'd like to show you a refinement now. If I didn't want to have the value and the label to be the same, I can actually define them separately. So here's a different syntax we can use where we have label and value. So you'll see these values are the same as what I had before, but I'm now specifying a label as well. And when I save this and I view the dashboard, you can see that the menu looks a little prettier now. So I have an all option and then each of the names of the pages capitalized. I'm going to show you a further refinement, which might be helpful if I wanted to use this list of values on multiple dashboards. I can go to the user menu on the right and select config files, and then create a new file called /datatables/services. And then what I'm going to do is to take all of the values, cut them out here, and paste them in the config file. Now, back in my dashboard, I can simply specify values and then the special underscore underscore data table and the name of the data table, which is services. When I save the dashboard and view it, you'll see it looks just the same. But now I've abstracted the values out to a data table that I could use and reference from another dashboard. Up next, I'm going to add a free text field. If I go back to my data set here, you'll see that I have this user facet. So I'm tracking a user ID, for the different users that are visiting my site. If I go back to the dashboard and edit the JSON, I'm adding a new parameter. This time is called user, but instead of specifying a list of values, I'm just saying default value equals blank. When I view the dashboard, you can see this just gives me a free text field. My intention is that I want to paste in or type in a value for a user ID. In order to have that affect each of the filters, I need to add the following. I'm adding user contains quote pound user pound quote. Let's talk about why for the first dashboard parameter we were able to do page equals, but for this parameter we're doing user contains. If you'll recall, the page parameter defaults to a value of star. So when we first load the dashboard, we're searching for page equals star, which will filter on all log lines that have some value for the field page. With the user field, it's an open field, so it's initially going to load with no text. Therefore, I want to do a search for contains. So this is a string match, and I'm searching for log lines where the user field matches a blank string, which has the same results as if I had searched for user equals star. In other words, any log lines that contain some value for the user field. So when I view my dashboard, you'll see I've got my user field here. I can just take a value from one of these fields from the facet. I'm going to paste it in here and do a search, and I'm going to see just the web traffic specifically for that user. Obviously, we're being very prescriptive here. We're limiting you to search one specific field, but that doesn't have to be the case. We could rename this to filter and then update the filters just to have a generic string filter. And now I have a text box that will allow me to type in any kind of filter I'd like. So let's just say for the sake of argument, I want to search for thread ID equals 118. So I can paste that in here and search, and now I'm just seeing the specific metrics for that thread. So far, we've talked about creating a dashboard parameter with a list of values, refining that so we had a dashboard parameter with a list of labels and values, and then putting that into a data table so it could be reused across different dashboards. And then we created a free text field. The last thing I'd like to demonstrate is a dynamic parameter. Scalar currently supports one dynamic parameter based on the server host field. To demonstrate that, we're going to look at a system performance dashboard. So what we're looking at here are metrics that are generated by the Scalar agent, and they're written to a log file called linuxsystemmetrics.log. What I've got is a list of hosts. This is a dynamic list, so as new servers come online and start sending logs to this account, they will appear in this list. The way that I accomplish this is with a special syntax where the values is this token, underscore underscore server hosts. This is what produces this dynamic list that allows me to narrow down by individual servers. Again, these metrics are generated by the Scalar agent, and you'll notice there are some entries in this list here that do not use the Scalar agent. Therefore, we don't have any metrics for them. We can narrow down the dynamic list of server hosts by appending a filter. The filter goes inside square brackets, and the syntax is log : and the name of the log file. We also support the parser field and other server level fields to narrow down this list. So when I save this and I view the dashboard, you'll see my list is shorter. It's now just seeing the servers that are running the Scalar agent and collecting Linux metrics. But again, this is dynamic, so as new servers come online, this list will update automatically. You'll notice one thing that's missing here is an aggregate. We've done that before by searching for star. So let's go ahead and do that here. I'm adding a value to the start of the list. The value is star, and the label is average all servers. When I save this and run this, you'll notice something interesting. I'm not getting any results. If we go back and look here, you'll see the syntax I'm using is server host equals quote, and then the server host variable. What we've seen before is that when you're searching with star, you do not need quotes. So what I need to do is to edit my filters so that there are no longer quotes around the server host parameter. In conjunction with that, I'm going to change this server host token to server hosts queue, which will add quotes. So now when I'm searching with star, I'm searching without quotes, and when I'm searching for a server host value, I search with quotes. So now I have my desired results. I have an aggregate across all servers. I can also narrow down to any of my specific servers that are sending these metrics. I hope you found this useful and you've already started thinking about ways you can apply this to your own data. You can learn more from within the product by going to the Docs menu and selecting the Dashboards documentation page. The Docs menu also has a support option, which will take you to our Help Center. From there, you can browse our knowledge base, or you can open a ticket to ask questions or provide feedback. Thank you very much.